Hi, y'all. It's Bridget Cutshaw with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Corey Lyon Folsom. He is a love and relationship coach and the author of Soul Statement. Can you say hi, Corey?
Hey there, Bridget.
I really appreciate your time and what you're doing to help other people. I think we have so much chaos in the world, right? Well, I think always has been, but it seems to be more amplified now because of tech, and we get overwhelmed, and you're helping people get through that, is my understanding, especially with how they're communicating with other people.
Yeah, indeed. I like how Jim Quick puts it. He says, the goal of the news is to make every problem your problem.
Oh, I love that. Right. And that's why I don't watch the news at all, by the way, because I find it's the whoever's talking, you're kind of getting their vibe from it. I'd rather, if I'm going to read the news, I'd rather read it, right?
Mhm.
And I can you interpret things differently, right?
Right, absolutely. And I think news input should be thought of as a diet like any other. There's a healthy balance of everything.
I love that how you're looking at life that way. I never thought about news as a diet. That's interesting.
Mhm.
And I'm definitely on a diet uh, because of I think it's always been that way though. It's not new. How there is clickbait, is that the right word?
Mhm.
And so what prompted you to write this book? Because it's a very helpful book, The Soul Statement. Why did you write this book?
Well, I just developed this line of questioning with my coaching clients, helping them identify during these micro moments of either confusion or worry or hopelessness, or just what are you telling yourself on the inside at that moment? So what's your brain saying? What's the narration in your head? And so I would help them pre-choose, so script in advance a different message. So when I mean, just to use the simplest example, so when you're saying, oh, I don't think I can do that, or that's too overwhelming, you can choose an alternate script. And the way I do it personally is I say, oh yeah, to myself, that's what I used to think. And what's really true is there is strength in my center. I'm stronger than my challenges, or there is grit inside me, you know, to make it relevant to whatever the unhelpful thought was.
Right. Do
Yeah.
you think, as you were talking, do you think it's a bit amplified? I just keep bringing this up sometimes with technology, maybe. Do you think it's been amplified?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And I like how Tony Robbins puts it. He says, what's wrong is always available, but so is what's right. And I thought, yeah, well, if what's right is always available, let's spend some time, just alone, discovering or rediscovering or tapping into what's right about me.
right.
And now I have, oh yeah, I want to remind myself of that in when it's helpful. So if I say, answers are in my center, if I can get quiet and clear and remember that, well, now I have it made into this little statement. Answers are in my center, that I can pull out when I'm uh, confused or worried about something. Like, you know what? Answers are in my center. Let me just kind of get centered.
Right. It's true. I think we just get I'm guilty in the past of distracting myself, of just focusing on, like you said, everything is in front of you, and I focus on that and chasing squirrels. That's what I like to call it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to do something sometimes.
Hmm. Yeah. And, when I was a much younger person, I think that was part of what, defined my existence, was an aversion to, being bigger and taking risks and imagining something greater for myself, a greater experience. And so I lived a smaller existence. I didn't want other people to feel bad or less than. And so maybe I didn't even think it out all that well, but The part of the problem with that way of living is it's becomes a downward spiral, and your circles become ever smaller until finally you're just find yourself in this little tiny thing that you either have to, you know, say oh well or say oh no.
Right. As you were talking, and you mentioned the big stuff. I think I've always found that I'm more successful at something if I take the smaller steps rather than giant leaps, because those changes are easier one step at a time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, if you wait till it's unbearable, then it typically is some kind of explosion that causes collateral damage to other people.
I didn't think about that, right? Your what's happening inside of you is gonna come out.
Right. And, you know, when I was working with newly sober people in the wilderness, so that was one of the things we would teach is that, you know, if you hold the resentment in, it's it's not maybe going to come out of your mouth later, but it will come out somewhere sideways as, you know, being nitpicky about this or critical about that or sarcastic or snarky. And, you know, what's wrong with him? And it's like, oh, well, he's not being, you know, aligned or clear about, you know, what the real resentment was to begin with. And maybe you can even forget what the original resentment was. And now you're just off. So it's a I'm a big fan of clarity, you know, maintaining that kind of I even have a one of my sayings is clarity is the new sexy.
I like that. Being clear about what you're trying to do and what you're trying to say. And I think words, like you were saying, the communication, words mean so much in how you use them and how they can be taken into perspective by other people. I've learned, and you probably that's why you're doing this. You got to be empathetic, right, to other people's situation, and to always. I've heard pause, breathe, and reflect before you like
Mhm.
do something or say something.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that pause is that beautiful moment where you can remind yourself, you know, what your value is and what you value. And it's like, you know, I personally have a value for kindness. And so if I catch myself and go, oh man, I think I just acted in an unkind way, I either have to go, oh, well, actually, I'm not a kind person, or I go, you know what, I'm going to return to, you know, this value because it's important to me, and I'm going to, you know, make amend if appropriate, or just act better.
Do you think, as you're saying the word kindness, do you think there's a difference between being kind and being nice?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Uh, my friend Kelly Bryson writes in his book, "Don't Be Nice, Be Real." He says he calls it the nice guys, GUISE. You know, that nice the mask, if you will, and so it's um, it just goes right along with what we've just been discussing. How, you know, if we go along to get along, it doesn't necessarily serve the highest good of everyone. And I think people run into this trap of it's either yes or no, say to a request by another person, hey, you know, let's go do, you know, this event. And you're like, well, I have to either say yes, even though I'm not 100% with it, or say no, and then have, you know, feel like, oh, did I make this person feel bad, or now I feel bad, or whatever. Whereas there's another path, which is yes and so you could say, wow, yeah, that sounds really cool, and it would work the best for me if maybe we didn't leave until, you know, after I've had something to eat, or, you know, modify it in some way that really lets the other person know what you're up for, what you're not up for, and um, that way they can really trust when you say yes, it's real,
Yeah,
because you're
trust.
also practiced at saying no or yes and.
I think trust is a huge, huge, big player in your relationships with people, right? Building the right trust, because my parents, when I was younger, they were saying, don't just talk the talk, you got to walk the walk, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, as we go through life, uh, we're trying to maybe follow that straight line toward however it is we desire to be, or what we want to do, or how we want to be. And naturally we drift. We all do it. And that's one of the, you could say, beautiful things about having an intimate companion, is they can recognize, um, my girlfriend will recognize usually before I do, that, oh, I've drifted just a little bit. I'm a little off course. Or maybe there's a tone in my voice that I didn't even hear. And so, she can say, oh, is that really how you wanted to talk to me? And I'm like, oh yeah, no, actually it isn't. Let me redo that. And so it's like piloting an airplane or a boat. We just, the micro adjustments all the time.
That's true. Got to adjust in life all the time. And that's what I think is so important about your clarifying, your communication. It's kind of how I'm taking what you're responding to me about. It's about everybody's situation is different, right? We have different backgrounds, we're around different people. And that's why I think you need to also be adaptable, right, to each situation.
Yeah, and I think one of the best skills that someone can have in a companionship, even whether it's a workplace or a personal life, is to be a little more curious about the other person. In other words, I wonder what, what was generated in them, or what caused them to have that opinion or to say that thing. Because, as you just said, they didn't have my family, maybe not even my town, maybe not my gender, maybe not my challenges, my desires. So we're all so different, and we listen to different voices. And so it's very likely that whatever they just said or did is completely in line with what they believe about themselves and the world. And they're not necessarily trying to be a dummy dog. They're just have a different perspective. And so it behooves us to be a little more curious, hold a little tension is okay, be a better container, and don't just like, well, my opinion is. It's like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder, you know, what makes you think that? It tends to make things go a little better.
I do love, as you were talking, think about situations. I enjoy being around people who are from different backgrounds because I learn a little bit more, right, about the world. And each of our experiences, we can learn from that. And I also believe, like in a work situation, I think teamwork is better when we're all a little different. Am I wrong? You know what I'm saying?
You're absolutely right. Yeah. If we just had one perspective, we would get, ourselves into a dead end eventually.
Right. I think maybe that's why that experience being in the work, different work environments have been really helpful. And then, like you mentioned, your family and friends and a spouse or a partner, you just have to have, I think, from my experience, I'm not a coach like you, but my husband and I are so different, right? But yet we have similarities. You have to
Mhm.
still have to have something. So why do you think that's a good thing to have, be kind of different to be a long-term relationship?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of benefits. And what comes to mind right now as you're talking is that, when we each grew up with caregivers, parents, maybe siblings, and we there were things we liked and things we didn't like. There are things that were unhappy and distasteful and that didn't work out the way we wanted, or we weren't always treated or talked to just the way we wanted. And so we developed um issues, shall we say. And and when we're in relationship, that's the place to work through those things that were developed in relationship, to mommy and daddy. And so um, we have this maybe new family of sorts, and so we can, when we hear that same way of being talked to that we were talked to as a child, that we didn't necessarily have the resources to say, that's not okay, I don't want to be talked to like that. Well, as an adult, we can use our adult voice and our adult strength and clarity and say, that didn't quite feel, that's not the way I want to be talked to. Let me, and I, as a man, appreciate it when um, my significant other will say, you know what, these are the words I'd like to hear when X or Y happens. And I'm like,
That's perfect.
cool. Like, those are the words, I can do that,
Right? That's communication skill right
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
like you mentioned, as your kid, certain words or ways something spoken to you about, that can trigger a negative response.
Right.
And I mean, I'm guilty of that in the past. If someone's saying something to me that was negative in the past to me and it triggered, then I've learned, okay, just pause, don't react. Uh,
Yeah.
We all have
Yeah.
our moments. And I think as you're talking, I like this, that one of the things I deal with, how, dealing with, I shouldn't say stress, but I love to be outside. I think that is so calming. We all have our moments of what calms us down. And I think you were a wilderness guide, right? And I think it sounds like you understand how nature can help you deal with life a little bit better, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And just to go back just a little bit to what
Sorry.
you were just talking about, no, that's okay, is the other thing is, it's really great to model whatever it is you want to receive. So
Yes.
if you want to, you know speak to your needs in a respectful and skillful way, if you want to be talked to that way, we'll start talking that way to the other person. So it's like, uh,
That's a good
so
that's a
yeah,
good reminder.
yeah. So with the wilderness, it really forces a certain respect for forces larger than ourselves. So, I mean, there's weather, there's hills, there's, oh, it's getting dark now. Uh, and there's seasons and weather, and there's the unexpected. It seems like, so sometimes it was multiple times a day. It's like, oh, this is unexpected. Someone just turned their ankle, or, oh, now there's a cliff that we have to find out how to go around, or what? Oh, we come to this water source and it's dry. Okay. So there was that, and it also was a beautiful um, container for, or setup for, dealing with frustration and not taking it out on each other, or not blaming, and saying, well, I'm cold. Maybe that has something to do with my own actions. I can't necessarily blame other people because, excuse me, I wore my, sweaty socks to bed, and now my feet are cold all night. And it's versus switching them out to dry socks, and it's like, there's a lot of obvious personal responsibility that comes into play. And so that's really one thing. And then also, we also learn that people have different assets, or strengths and weaknesses. And so these differences, um, say a weakness can become an asset depending on the situation. And so, the big, strong guy is like, yeah, I can lead the way. And then maybe the more thoughtful person goes, hey, I see an easier route. Look at that. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. So,
Right.
uh, and we just had to, 6 or 7 people who didn't know each other the day before, all of a sudden we're here, and we just had to constantly find solutions to unexpected problems, and there was no, manual or book to follow. And these obstacles, this frustration, show us where we need to work. And it all comes down, not all, but a lot of it comes down to just being human with each other. It's like, oh, we used to have a thing where if somebody had a problem, they could just say circle. And I had veto power because if there's a reason we shouldn't stop right now, we'll do this later. But if I didn't see a reason not to, circle meant, hey, we're all gonna take off our packs and we're gonna sit in a circle and hear what's going on with somebody and see how we can, come to understanding or solutions as a group. So, and it also showed how, speaking of being human with each other, that being tolerant of each other, being a little more gentle with, not jumping to conclusions, a little more listening, a little more curiosity is just so needed and useful. I mean, it's almost like it just forms part of the foundation of a good, group dynamic. And when I was oftentimes struck looking back too, but at the time, how when there's this unexpected kindness, somebody just offers the last bit of water in their water bottle because they know I'm a lot thirstier than they are, or something like that. I mean, that happened. And it's like, oh, maybe I need to change how I think about this person. I thought they were a little more unfeeling, and now they just did this beautiful gesture. It's like, oh, it just
Right.
kind of undoes some of those, like, oh, maybe my thinking isn't just all I should, rely upon.
Right. And having that interaction with them in person definitely helps connect with each other. Like you said, being human. And I love this idea of the wilderness guide as a group, because with people that don't know each other, that
Mhm.
is, I think it's enlightening. It can be healing what you're saying to me. So what got you into this? What got you into wanting to be a wilderness guide in the
Um,
past? I was just curious.
well, I was, my first real interests as a young, 9, 10, 11-year old were, bird watching and archery.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so, and then I ended up discovering the school at 16 years old that taught uh, how to make fire without matches, how to find edible plants and make shelter with just, go out with nothing and come out with a shelter for the night, and tanning hides. And so I just really dug it and ended up being an instructor there for a few years. And then these wilderness programs with newly sober people, they move as a little group, and they're doing fire without matches. We're not given much food, so we're looking for edible plants. And so it just naturally led into, oh, I could do that too. And so I did that for like 9 years.
That is so
Yeah.
awesome. It's like learning new skills, important survival skills, really. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
how to
That's
use,
the term actually. And
yeah, survival skills.
also with the wilderness, that's where I really discovered the I mean, as a child, I would spend a lot of time just sitting, being quiet, listening for the bird songs and the other noises of the forest. And but especially being in, so I mean, I love that. And then being in the wilderness, I would try to offer that to the other people. So I would, I'm the, the guide. So I get to say, everybody's going to go spend an hour by themselves. We just had lunch. Okay, everybody go, take a journal and go find somewhere to sit by yourself. And so
Alone.
there's a real power in alone time and
Yes,
contemplation and going, my parents this and my parents that. And hopefully by the end of the trip, 42 days later, it's more like, oh, me this and I that, you know. And
you're
uh, and one of the things I love doing was typically at day 19, we would send them off at sunset 45 minutes apart. We'd send another person, and there was a trail or a dirt road, and they would have to just no flashlight, no food, no nothing. They just would walk. And it was about between 20 and 25 miles, depending on where we were. They had to, and they didn't know how far it was. They just knew you just walk until there'll be a campfire and we'll be there, and then your walk will be over. Well, they don't know it's like 25 miles away.
They were
And
enjoying the scenery, right? Or trying to figure
oh,
out,
it was dark, no flashlight.
yeah, well, it's been funny. You gotta figure
Yeah,
out how to get there.
and we would even do it in like rainy nights.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm like, and I would just tell them, I'd say, if it feels soft under your feet, that means you're not on the road. That was, and so
Right.
you have to go sideways. Oh, I feel a hard surface. Okay, I'm on the road. I'll keep going. I mean, it was wild. But all that time you're walking, you can't sit because you don't, and you're walking. And so it gives your mind something to attach to. And then your other part of your psyche can just kind of be free to think about bigger questions and examine, wow, how did I get here? My best
Right.
thinking got me here.
Definitely engaging in that environment. You definitely have to be alert, like you said, where you're putting your feet,
Yeah, right,
cognizant of it. And that's
right.
like a great, cool experience that you did and helped so many other people. And I'm assuming all that is what helped you create this book, Soul Statement,
Yes,
right?
soul statements, indeed. So I like to think of that soul statement, those that reminder in real time of something that's true and good and resourceful, maybe unchanging about yourself. It's like a emotional postcard from you to you, and it
Oh,
can just interrupt that pesky voice that's telling you something unhelpful. You can go, yeah, you know what? I'm going to um, focus on something else right now. You know, like kind of like we said before, what's right about me is always available, and so um, um, my inner alignment is always available, and so it's a way to kind of let that inner knowing kind of bubble up to the surface and be that thought, and then your next thought can be based on this one, so it's a better thought, and then your next action can be based on that too. So just a way to have that little micro moments of self-empowerment, soul statements.
I like that. And as you're talking, those statements, it kind of sounds like an affirmation. Does it kind of the goal is to make people feel a little bit happier? You know,
Well, the goal is to not listen to the unhelpful voice in your head,
gotcha.
and so you declare that countermanding, that counteracting statement, going, oh, you know what, actually, I'm made of tough stuff. I can do this. I am enough. And I have this one coaching client that I've said all these different soul statements, but she just has the one, I am enough, and that applies to every time she wants a soul statement. She just says, you know what, I am enough. And the real power of it is when you feel the truth and the rightness of it, and you want your bones and your cells to hear it and feel it and go, yeah, we agree.
Yes,
So
it helps build your resilience, right? I think
it's
as well.
all about resilience. That's right.
That is so cool. I love what you're doing and helping people. And I love that you have a book. A book is so helpful. I think during COVID, physical books became really, really popular. People weren't expecting that, but we wanted some tangible things in our hands. And I think we're focusing more on what's important. And that sounds like what you're doing, helping people focus on what is important to them.
That's right. And their own value.
Yes, value. That's perfect. Yes. Right. We all don't value our own selves sometimes because we're trying to do too much. And
Mhm.
we gotta, as we get in different phases of our life, that sounds better than getting older. We have to cut out some things because it helps you focus a little bit better. Because um, I've I just can't believe what the younger I'm just thinking about the younger generation, all this changes and constant.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just crazy. And I'm trying to understand it, like this AI stuff, but
mm,
I think it's a lot of it is hype personally, but eventually who knows what it'll be like in what, 20 years.
mm.
but we're here right now, right? And that's what you're doing to focus on that moment. And you're here and you have value, right?
That's right. That's right. And I think if I maybe encapsulated it into one thing, I might say you can learn to call up the best part of you in a moment.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's perfect. So what is your, with all your experiences and with this book and the coaching, what is do you think the one main takeaway? But maybe what you just said, right, is the focus
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Like just go back to the beginning. What's right about you is always available. So why not grab it and make that your primary thought, your primary uh, like your compass is pointed to that, like your true north. And as life is as kind of an endless series of mini forgetting and then remembering, like, oh yeah, this is what I really want to do, or how I want to be and who I want to be. And so it's a way to just keep ourselves right back on track and go, you know what, I'm capable, I'm enough.
I love that. That
Yeah.
is so helpful, Corey. And I'm just like, and you have such a calm demeanor, and I think that's really helpful too. And because you're actually taking your own advice, it sounds like, right?
I am. And you talked about uh, aging a little bit, and I could say, well, I'm 60, but the way I think about it is I'm Corey version 6.0.
I love it. That's so cool. I mean, because I'll be 5.9 this year.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. 5.9. It's a new upgrade. Boom.
That's what I did last year because I like to run. But my 58th birthday, I ran 5.8 miles on my birthday because I could. I
Love
mean, it
it.
wasn't like sprinting, but I made I made it on purpose because I was celebrating, right, what you can do and you're still here,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
what I just feel good afterwards. I'm one of those people, you find something that you like, and I'm one of those that like running for some reason. It just is, I get energy from it too, I think. Anyway. Well,
Yeah.
this has been really awesome. Where can people learn more about you, Corey, and where they can get your book?
Sure. Well, I have a website, coreRelationship.com, and there's pages about me and my approach to coaching. And then there's a page specific to the book. There's an Amazon link and a bookshop.org link. I like bookshop.org because you can, some of the funds, it's the same price, but some of the funds go to a bookstore that you choose, a brick and
Oh
mortar
yeah,
bookstore.
they're indie publisher. I mean, sorry,
Yes.
stores. I said it wrong. Indie bookstores.
Yeah, that's right. So I love bookshop.org. And I'm also on Instagram, Corey Lyon Folsom, all one word, and Facebook, um, Pinterest. So I don't do too much. I don't do
I
all the
understand.
ones.
Well, for those that are listening, those links will be included in the description, and we have a lot more in common than I realized, Corey. That is so cool. It was just so exciting to me. I'm just getting excited to talk to someone like you. I love
Oh,
this.
yeah, it's been fun. Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you. And for anybody listening, go check out his website. Talk to you guys later.